How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another episode of the Tactical Empire. Today, I have a friend of mine who I'm excited to introduce you guys to. Steve Schabacker has joined us for today's episode. He is the owner of two Sheepdog Firearm stores, one in Illinois and one in Indiana, that we'll talk a little bit about. He's got a passion for all things firearms. He is a fellow podcaster. You can find him and follow him at the Tactical Entrepreneur Podcast. And he is launching a new endeavor for custom firearms that we'll discuss as well through his company, Valhalla Research. Welcome, Steve. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff. So happy to be here.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It was so good to see you last week, man. I'm glad you could hop on so quickly and we could kind of jam about your businesses and hear what you got going on.
Absolutely excited to do so. Always good to see you and your wife. We had a fantastic time catching up, and happy to be on here. It's crazy that our schedules actually align this well this soon. It usually doesn't happen that often for me. So
yeah, no doubt. Me either. So tell us a little bit about you are a passionate 2A and firearms guy, obviously, by the businesses that you're involved in and own. Tell us how you got in that business in the first place.
Well, it's kind of interesting. So I've always definitely been a big fan of the Second Amendment, big fan of freedom and all those sorts of things that we have in this country. Thanks to those who defended our freedom, such as yourself. Always grateful for our veterans out there. So it's interesting. It happened by accident. So yeah, you're not going to say it by accident. So we actually I've always been a serial entrepreneur, always been in usually a few different things at once. And at the time I owned a portion of a security investigations company in Illinois with a couple business partners. And then next thing you know, so we started doing we had armed guards. And in Illinois, if you want to put an armed security guard out there, they have to take a 40-hour course, which you have to teach, or you have to send them to a school that teaches it. Well, we started sending our guys other places, found that the training that they would get was inadequate and putting it in a nice way. So we started doing that ourselves. One of my partners at the time was a chief of police and had been teaching firearms for 40 plus years after teaching them in the military also. So he started teaching our guards ourselves. And then the concealed carry started off in Illinois. So to get a concealed carry in Illinois, you had to have a 16-hour class. So people just started asking us to teach this. And we're like, no, we're not a school. This isn't what we do. We're only doing it for our guards because we want them to be trained the right way. Yep. Well, then finally, to shut people up, we decided to have a couple classes just for friends and family that had been asking, and we did it. And the next thing you know, it took off. So now we're in the concealed carry class business. So as they had asked, say, hey, where do we go to buy guns now? Where do we go to shop? We're just not comfortable the places around here. And we're like, well, what do you mean? How can you not be comfortable in this? Well, the typical gun shops are around Chicagoland, like much of the rest of the nation. The typical gun shop, you walk in and you see a bunch of paneling on the walls, a few dead animals, typically a long line of glass cases, and then two grumpy guys sitting behind the counter. That's usually how they all work wherever they are. Well, here in Chicagoland, we actually got some of the other side of it too, which you have the big Walmart-like gun stores where you're not going to get any good help. They have stock, but it's still a bunch of glass cases, bunch of people. And if you don't know exactly what you want, you're kind of, basically you're screwed. So we looked at it, and after being asked a bunch of times, hey, there might be some room in this industry. They could definitely use some change. They could use some fresh fresh views, some fresh ways of doing things. And I've always, as an entrepreneur, always liked going into those industries where you can make a change, you can make things different. You can not just accept the status quo and really be successful at it. So we said, hey, you know what? We'll open a gun store next door to our offices for our other stuff. And there was a unit available next door that was about 1,000 square feet. We said, well, we'll just get that unit and it's close enough. We'll just put a Ring doorbell on there. And then when people come in, we'll just run next door from our offices and be able to just take care of them that way. Well, that started out just fine. And next thing you know, 2 weeks later, we were busy all day long, and my partners were spending all day pretty much over in the shop helping customers. So they said, well, this isn't going to work. So we hired a couple full-time employees, and then we were off. And that was our first store since then. And so we've taken more space. It's grown a couple times, and then just decided to open our second store just the last fall. Because we had so many customers coming over across the border from Indiana. And as you know, for handgun wise, you have to take possession of them in your home state. So we found ourselves selling a ton of guns in our Moni store and then getting them sent across the border to other FFLs. And we're like, well, why don't we just open up a shop over there too? So that's kind of how we got going. And it's grown from zero to multiple 7-figure business in less than 5 years. And we may just get into the 8-figure realm this year if things go the way we hope they will.
I love that, man. I love that. It's just a total organic growth story, and it came about because the way that your mind works. You're exactly right. You are a serial entrepreneur. I've seen you just like put the pieces together in person as well. You're always moving parts and pieces around. Like, oh, there's an opportunity there. How could we solve that problem? And that's a common trait of entrepreneurs, obviously. But your story is amazing because your original store is less than 5 years old, correct?
Yeah. It's just about to hit 5 years. So just about 5 years.
Okay. So, I mean, 0 to 8 figures in 5 years is a fantastic accomplishment. So congratulations on that, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's nothing to be shy about at all. Do you still own the security and contracting company? Or are you involved in that?
No. So we just finished exiting that. So our original partner that was in with us on the gun shops was also in on the security investigations company. So we just ended up buying him out of the gun stuff in the gun shops, and then he ended up buying us out of the security investigations company. So that was really his labor of love, if you will, and his more so him than us. We certainly helped a lot with the business aspects of it, but it was all his connections and whatnot to get us the contracts and whatnot. So we have our hands full with the other stuff. We're like, we can't keep doing all of this. We're just not doing anything well. So that was for us. That's what had to go. And he too, our partner that took that over is a little farther along in his career. So he was looking to exit really, really soon, where we're really looking to pour into the gun shop and really have it reach its full potential before we would even consider exiting from it. So.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So it worked out for everybody then. I mean,
yeah, it did. It did. Yeah, absolutely.
Win. So tell me about Valhalla Research and what you're doing with that stuff, because I've seen some of the guns that you guys have produced, and those are awesome. So tell me a little bit about what the purpose behind that business is, and then what you guys do.
Absolutely. So we started. It actually started again organically. You're going to see a common theme here, but so we started doing custom rifles. AR-15, AR-10 platform a few years ago, and just we got our manufacturing license and started doing it, and under the Sheepdog name. But what we found was a lot of people were confused, and we were primarily selling them through our retail stores, just people that came in. But people were confused about, okay, what is the Sheepdog Firearms brand? Is it a manufacturer? Is it retail stores? Is it a training center? Well, yes, it's all of those. But so we decided that if we really wanted to have the potential that we believe is there for the custom firearms, that it needed to have its own entity. It needed to have its own name and be able to create its own brand, if you will, separate from the Sheepdog Firearms. So what we came up with was Valhalla Research Custom Firearms. We really wanted to focus on the fact that we're always going to try to be on the cutting edge. We're not going to just accept status quo and we're going to go to war for what we do. And we are just going to create the best firearm for each individual person possible. So being that may be different for you or maybe different for and is certainly different for every customer out there. So then we started diving into that, and then we said, hey, what's wrong with this industry? There's a bunch of different companies doing the sort of custom thing. Well, the big problem is it's not easy. So again, you see the firearms industry is one of those that's really stuck behind the times. We still have shops around us that are still using duplicate paper receipts. They don't even have a POS. They're still doing 4473s on paper, all those sorts of things. And the same is true in the custom portion of it, where there was no easy way to design the gun you want. You would go to their website, and maybe there'd be a few options. Some of them have some where you can pick this or that, but not enough. And then, so it'd be a lot of back and forth with them. And who has time for that? Especially us, as it was really geared towards people like you and I, busy entrepreneurs that, hey, I may want a custom gun, but at the same time, I don't have 4 or 5 hours to invest with phone conversations and emailing back and forth. I want to just go on and pick out what I want on a website and have it hit order, put in my card, and have it show up to my FFL to do the paperwork. Well, so that's another portion that we're doing is the website is actually going to have a gun designer where you can actually click a whole bunch of boxes and make a bunch of choices and then have exactly what you want spit out on the end. So it's literally going to start where, hey, are you going to build a pistol or rifle? Okay. What caliber are you thinking of? All right. Are you right or left-handed? How important is the trigger to you? What style do you want? Did you want this kind of a stock or this kind of a stock? Is it going to be a multi-purpose carbine or, a dedicated marksman style rifle setup, or, and you go all the way through to custom Cerakote, to custom laser engraving, anything you can imagine, literally thousands and thousands of options. And as you pick these changes, it also shows you the price change on there too. So you can see, okay, well, this trigger is going to cost me $250 versus this one will cost me $150. Is the $100 worth it for a better trigger? Yes. Okay, Cerakote. Do I want a single color Cerakote that's this price, or what if I want custom camouflage? Is it worth that price? And as you go through, just like when you would design a new car online, it'll change your price, it'll change your options list, and then at the end, when you get there, you go, okay, I'm done. This is what I want. This is what I want to pay. Hit add to cart, type in all your info, and you're done. Now, if you need somebody to walk you through it, we're there too, but there'll also be a series of videos that are right on the website. So you can literally sit down in your secondary office on the throne at night after dinner and take your phone and order a custom gun. It's that quick. So
I love it, man. That concept is just so needed in my opinion. I mean, I've built a truck exactly the way you're describing, and that's all I was thinking of while you're going down the list. And it's awesome, especially if you've got the little question mark by it and you can just hover over it and like, what does the trigger weight mean? And like stuff like that. Like what's the difference that we're talking about? And yeah, that's just such a cool concept. I love the name too. Valhalla Research is awesome. Let's talk about some other accomplishments that you've had. You wrote a book. This man is a published author, best-selling author. Adapt and Overcome is the book. How long ago did you write that?
It's been out about 6 months, about 6 months now.
Okay. Awesome. And what, if you don't mind telling the audience, what's it about?
So the book's called Adapt and Overcome. And really, I really got the idea to write it based upon our experience starting Sheepdog and some other things that we've done in the past in all different industries. Really, it talks about how to differentiate, to basically find a gap in a marketplace and how to use that to propel yourself forward and to just to beat the competition. Anybody, too many entrepreneurs these days, you'll see them open up a business. You say, okay, I want to open up this kind of business and I want it to be just like this other business. Well, if you open up a business that just like every other business in that industry, then really the only thing you have left to compete on is price. And then it's a race to the bottom. And then it's who wants to go out of business first. You really just need to find, it goes through some examples about like the restaurant industry and how some people have adapted for COVID and the changes that it kind of forced on people, and really just how to make yourself unique in your marketplace, but how to do that in a tactical manner. How to do that with repeatable results instead of just taking a guess at it.
Man, that's awesome. That is awesome because you're exactly right. I mean, we hear the terminology all the time, like a blue ocean or a red ocean, and a red ocean is going to be your commodities that where you're racing to the bottom because there's a bunch of players in that marketplace and competitors, and that's such a good lesson to learn as an entrepreneur, is that you have to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. You need to niche very hard. And you need to have some unique qualities about what you're doing and what services you're providing.
Absolutely. And I always tell people too, it's like I have the blue ocean, red ocean thing. There's not just a line in the ocean where one starts and the other. It's not a map. There's swirls of blue here, there's swirls of red here, and there's areas of purple. And you have to really look through the openings in the red to find where the blue is. It's just not these days, there's always going to be new things to be invented in new industries, but let's be realistic. It's very few and far between. It's usually always an adaptation of a current industry or doing something better or being able to provide a level of service that's not received elsewhere. You look at, like, for example, and listening to consumers, that's the key of all of it. You look at it like, a few years ago, how CarMax has been doing well compared to the traditional dealership experience. And then now you see it to kind of taken to the next level with COVID, of course, being somewhat of a catalyst with like Carvana, for example. And really it's just listening to consumers, because now what do you see on most of the major websites for the major car brands is, buy online, shop at home, do online paperwork. Well, hey, so now they're getting forced to play catch up, which is great for the industry. And in the end of the day, it's great for consumers because we're finally able to get what we want everywhere. But you see that, but if it wasn't for that innovation, Carvana is just another used car dealer with a website,
Yeah. I think that the trick currently in the marketplace, in my opinion, is the merging of technology with personal service. And because that's really the people that are hitting it out of the park, because having the ability to check all the boxes like Valhalla Research and do it on my phone through an app or whatever, but then also having a level of customer service is where I think those are the companies that you're seeing emerge and be very, very successful. It's a combination of the technology and the customer service, I think.
Absolutely right. I 100% agree with you. Some things that we have, like one thing that's on our website, and when people start to order a gun, it's, how do you like to be communicated with? We flat out ask them the question is, would you prefer Facebook Messenger? Would you prefer text? Would you prefer a phone call, or would you prefer email? Those are the 4 options we throw out there, and you tell us how you would like us to talk to you, because we're going to talk to you. We're going to give you updates about how your gun is doing in build. We're going to get in touch with any of the if we see your configuration, we're saying, it would really cost you less to do it this way, or maybe adding this one option might be something that you would consider with, that would go well with everything else. Or maybe you accidentally picked a black stock and a green grip, and we just want to make sure that that's exactly how you wanted it. So things like that, instead of, that's what the checkbox has said. So, but then also from the delivery too, is to us, is after you order a firearm and you receive it, that's just the beginning of a relationship. That's not the end of it. We want to make sure that when you have that firearm, that we give you resources available, links to watch some videos, and, hey, how do I break this down? How do I clean it? How do I properly lubricate it? What happens if I have a problem? We have our lifetime concierge warranty too. So unless you put 500,000 rounds through the gun and just wear out the barrel, at that point we would offer to put on a new barrel for you for simply the cost of parts. But if it's broken, we're going to fix it. Period. And really being able to give that level of service with making the whole relationship easy, and let the customer drive how they want the relationship to proceed and how they want to communicate.
Yeah. Well, I have to believe in your industry, just like any other, that recurring business is easier to acquire than brand new business.
I would think without a doubt. There's certainly going to be different customers, and like from the retail firearm standpoint, there's a different, you call it a thermostat of uh, how much they love it. You know, we have customers that'll come in and they'll just take a concealed carry class and they'll buy a gun and they'll buy a few rounds of ammo and then they'll be good, and we won't see them for 5 years until it's time for them to renew. And then you ask them if they have fired their said weapon or trained with it or whatever, and they look at you like you're there's something wrong with you. But and then you have ones that will, they'll maybe go to the range or train a couple times a year. Maybe they'll buy a new gun, every so often, once every year or two. And then you have folks that are just living it every day, constantly training, constantly wanting to know about, hey, what's out there, what's new, constantly wanting to flip out a gun or trade this in towards this, or, always making changes. So we have all different thermostat of people that with their love for and their commitment to firearms and whatnot. So yeah, anytime you can get folks that are just all about it and love it, we'd love to continue to serve them and just make it so that they don't need to go anywhere else,
Absolutely. I can see firearms. I mean, I own quite a few, and I don't go like shopping around. Like if I've had a great experience with someone, that's my contact the next time I'm going to go get something. And especially in this situation where you can build me anything I want, like why would I ever need to go anywhere else? Like if you can customize my Glock with the triggers I want on it and the stipple on the handles and all that other stuff, like what in the world? You don't have to go anywhere else. Like you're not going to go to your big box store and try to grab a stock gun and then bring it to you so that you can customize it. That doesn't make any sense. At least I wouldn't do that, but
yeah, it ends up costing people more money, the people that do it that way, and then they realize that. Or even like these days, the one thing we saw, like with guns, with pistols, you have to buy them in your home state or take possession of them, do the paperwork in your home state. Long guns are your home state and then any state that physically borders. But what we're seeing is that everybody always assumes that online's cheaper. And so we'll get people that in our retail stores that will have a gun sent to us for us to do the paperwork. And then our transfer fee is one of the lowest around here. And it's $30. But they'll look at our price on the wall compared to what they paid, and usually they'll have paid the same or more. And then now you add on the $30, and then now you add on what they paid for shipping, and now they would have got for what they could have got for a $500 gun, they paid $600 or $650 for. And then, but just because everybody assumes, oh, it's cheaper on the internet, well, just like when people assume that Amazon is cheaper on some things. Well, they're not. I've come numerous cases where I've just happened to look at an item and had grabbed some at a local store somewhere and then looked at it on Amazon like, well, that's like $3 more for that or $6 more on little items, like cleaning supplies and stuff like that. So yeah. just the assumption that online is always cheaper certainly isn't the case. And we love to make it turnkey for people too. And it's all about the relationships, just like anything else. It's, we love our customers. We love what they do. That being said, we're certainly, if there's somebody that's looking for something $1 cheaper somewhere 100 miles away, no, spend your gas, go drive that. I mean, we pride ourselves on our service and just taking care of people. And you're right, though. Most people don't price shop, but that being said, there's also a responsibility on the retailer's part with that, because we saw that exploited so bad over COVID, where the highest we ever had to go because of what we paid for it for ammunition was about, for 9mm range ammo, was about $23 a box. There was some jokers down the street selling it for $50 a box. And like, we're not going to do that. People said, hey, is this like seconds? Is it reloads? Why is your ammo so much cheaper than this place, this place, and this place? I said, well, flat out, you want me to tell you the truth? Yeah, tell me the truth. We're not gouging you. And that's all it was, is people, free market. Well, that goes to a point, but at the end of the day, we consider our clients to be family. So that's just not how I would treat a member of my family. So I'm not going to treat my clients that way. If I can't buy this ammunition and be able to sell it to them at what I think is a fair and reasonable price, then I would rather have an empty shelf than have something even appear like I'm trying to take advantage of someone. Just me, but.
Well, I mean, you clearly are servicing your clients on a high level, because I mean, to run the numbers that you guys have run in a short period of time is the proof's in the pudding, I guess, is the way to put it. I mean, you wouldn't be experiencing that type of explosive growth if you weren't providing the service and fulfillment that people expected, for sure. I was going to ask you, do you see you kind of brought it up, but I want to dig down a little bit. Like, do you see people buy one firearm frequently, or do you see people, or most of your people, I'm buying 10 guns over a 3-year period or a 2-year period, or I buy one a quarter or something? Like,
it really varies.
Really?
It really varies. Yeah. And it's interesting because you'll see like events, like some of our folks will say, hey, I got in a bunch of overtime, or, I sold a car I didn't need or something, and I want to invest in guns. And, and it's interesting because if you buy right, the other thing people don't realize is you buy the right things, they can certainly be a very good investment also. I've told many wives that have came in and said, well, you said, oh, my husband spent 20 grand on guns in the last, 2 years. And I said, well, you know what he's probably got now? $20,000 or $22,000 worth of guns. So you know what would have happened if he would have spent $20,000 on a boat, a couple years ago? He'd have a $10,000 boat. That's what would happen. So just in that terms, that for a hobby and whatnot, if that's what people use it for, beyond the defense stuff, it's certainly a lot better of an investment. And there's a lot worse ways you can spend your money. You can drink it away. You can you can gamble it away, but your guns are always going to be in your safe. So
they definitely don't go down in value. For the most part.
No, that's for sure. The only time they go down in value is when people will buy them and then decide that they want something else, like 3 weeks ago after just shooting it a couple of times. And then, okay, it's a current model. It's, it's now been fired. So now you have a used gun where you just purchased a new gun, or you'll see people that'll pay too much for them. Sadly, there's some dealers in our area that just really took advantage of people, especially over COVID. So what should have been a $550 Glock, they paid $800 for, and then you go to sell that gun, you're losing. There's not much you can do about it. But right. I think the other thing for us, besides taking care of people, the other thing that really helped us with our growth was our design of our store. I don't think I hit on that, is completely different. So, I talked about the glass cases, I talked about, and whatnot, but what happens when you go into a gun shop and you think you know what you want, you have them show you a couple guns, they're pulling them out of the glass case. And then by the time they get to 3 or 4, no matter how nice they were in the beginning, are you going to buy one or are you going to leave? Which one we wrapping up? So you can't touch that many guns. So we saw that as being a problem. So in our original store in Moni, we actually put up a cage, which we made look like a big dog kennel, and we put all the guns in there on slat walls. So we had controlled egress so that we could, watch people as they were coming in and out. But while they're in there, they have the means to touch 100 different guns if they want. So it really made it so that they could put them in their hands, because what's your favorite gun? The one that feels the best in your hand, the one that you're the most comfortable with, and that's different for everybody. Some people may like the grip angle of a Springfield. Some people may love a Glock. Some people may like a Sig Traeger better. Any of the different brands and styles, you have to be able to touch them. So we doubled down on that with our Dyer store in Indiana, and we actually, so there's no front counter in there. There's not a single glass case. We really did kind of the Apple Store design for a gun shop, and even the registers are integrated in with the floor displays. So in there, you can go walk in and touch around 150 handguns, around 150 rifles, and there's absolutely nothing. We have a tethering system, so you can't just stick them in your pocket, of course, right. But you can still walk up to them the way the tether is attached. You can still dry fire them and try to make sure, say, hey, do I like how this trigger feels? Do I like how these sights look? You can do all those sorts of things in a safe environment, and and you're free to touch without the whole high pressure thing. Yeah, our guys are there to answer questions as much or as little as you want, but and to walk you through the process as much or as little as you want. But by making it a completely different and engaging environment, we found that we've sold all kinds of guns that people never would have thought they would have buy, and they've said it to us so many times of, hey, I never would have bought one of these. And I said, well, why, sir? He said, well, because I never would have picked it up, because I never would have asked for it to be pulled out of a glass case. So unless one of my buddies had one and I happened to shoot it at the range, there was zero chance of me even looking at this brand, because I didn't think I'd like it just by the looks of it. But when I pick it up, it's comfortable. So things like that, you hear the stories of just because of the innovation, you made the customer experience completely different, because you removed restrictions that didn't necessarily be there if you need to be there if you're running the rest of your business correctly.
That's absolutely brilliant. I'm sitting here thinking about all my experiences shopping for guns, and yeah, you're spot on. And especially I'm like on a Saturday when you guys are run on and there's a bunch of people in there and you've got 3 guys behind the counter and they're running back and forth. you feel like you're inconveniencing them if you look at 5 guns. But if you're going to spend $2,000 on something, like, you shouldn't be worried about inconveniencing the clerk. And like, there's just so many psychological aspects to that. Weight distribution, things like that. You generally go with what you know. And your comment about, unless my buddy owned one, that's funny as well, because like, I know I've shot my friends' guns before, and that's led to purchases of guns, because I'm like, wow, man, this thing fires like a dream. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity to put it in my hands ever. So as you say that and describe it, I'm like, that's just absolutely brilliant to do it that way. Because I guarantee the volume of sales has gone up tremendously versus doing it the other way.
Without a doubt. I mean, we see it so often, because you think about it, like, too, is like, how many times when you're buying a gun and you think you might want this or this, but then you want to compare them side by side, and some places they'll have the rule of no, 1 gun out per person. Well, I want to touch this one, then I want to touch that one, then I want to touch this one, I want to touch that one, and then I want to hold them both in one in each hand. And no, I'm not trying to go gangster on you or anything, but I want to try both triggers at dry fired at the same time to see the difference, because sometimes that's the only way you can feel the nuances. So any of those things are all available, and it just makes that much of a difference to the customer. It was really just listening to them. It's really, we just did a lot of research in the beginning, and said, both ourselves visiting shops, and then having people that we knew that were into guns a lot say, hey, what's your biggest headache with the gun buying process? What's your biggest headache with the gun shop you go to? Just tell us about the bad, and then let's turn around and see how we can make it good.
And how'd you go about getting that information? What gave you that idea? Like, when you say you collected all this data from customers, how did you just talk to them when they came into your store? Or
this was beforehand. So this was all just mainly people we knew. We leveraged the people in our circle that we knew were constantly at gun shops or going to gun shows or all those sorts of things. And then my one partner, Tom, had a really great network because he was a chief of police. So he would ask the guys that he knew, it's kind of hit or miss. Some guys in law enforcement are really into guns and some are not. So he knew the ones that were, but also asking for their input on it too. So it was just a matter of just asking. And then we thought we were onto something. So then we started actually just looking around more online. How are all these gun shops set up? And looked at hundreds of different gun shop layouts. And the more that we looked at, we're like, man, this is just wrong. And then before we weren't even in the industry at this time. We just gotten our FFL, and we had no business open or whatever yet. We started looking into, it's like, okay, well, what's stopping? We thought for sure there was like rules or like laws or something that was stopping people from doing this. And there's none. It's just simply the fact that I believe that that's the way it's always been done. And that's the way they did it. I mean, we even looked at like, okay, well, from a break-in standpoint, how is our location hardened compared to what a traditional gun store is? And we looked at like, well, we're better off. Because like, for example, with our cage model, it's like, okay, well, they got to breach our perimeter, then they got to make it inside, and then they have to breach the fence, and then they have to, by the time, the alarms went off, 3-4 minutes ago. So you look at those sorts of things, you're like, okay, well, what if it was glass cases? Okay, once they're inside, all they got to do is smash a glass case and grab and go. Like, okay, well, that's way less work. So no, we're harder. So looking at those sorts of things, we're like, we couldn't believe that nobody had done it. And then when we looked into it, yeah, there's places, no place around us, but there was other places that had some sort of a hybrid of it and some sort of the idea, but no one that had taken it to the extreme we did, and certainly no one that had completely done away with counters altogether. And we thought that was a key, and we definitely proved it out in our Dyer store, because from a psychological standpoint, when you're talking, especially in gun shops where you're already most people are feeling a little intimidated because the people that typically work in gun shops have this ego thing about them a lot of times. And they're like, well, I'm behind the counter, so I'm smarter than you. And then as soon as that comes out, that counter just makes that 10 times worse. So by doing away with the counters and allowing people to have conversations with our folks standing right next to them, it broke down a lot of boundaries that may have been subconsciously there when people came into the store. And we just found like from there, it just really blossomed, and people just immediately felt comfortable. And they felt comfortable whether they were a first time gun buyer or whether they were someone that has 500 guns at home in 11 safes and has been, doing this for forever. So we really found that by meeting people where they were, it was a win-win for everybody.
Man, I just sit here and that is brilliant. So I was trying to figure out why nobody else does it either. And do you think so that floor model gun, do you have to, it's obviously not ruined. Do you sell it at a discount because it's been,
It all depends on
known?
the item. So like typically like the way our securing method and everything is all pretty well designed. The things that it sits on are padded, they're rubberized. The where it clamps onto the gun is rubberized. And really, like most of the popular guns that we flip through them so fast that some of them may not even have gotten handled, or maybe have gotten handled for such a short period of time that no, we typically don't sell them at a discount because they've been out, because typically they may or may not have even been touched before purchased. Now that goes being said, now every once in a while you'll have a gun that's there for a long time, or you'll have something that gets damaged by somebody. Maybe it's got a tiny little mark on it. Then what we actually do is we'll actually pull that off a display, and we have a used section, and that kind of stuff we'll just liquidate it at used prices, just because we just think it's kind of the right thing to do. So.
But man, what you just went through, that 5 minute little spiel that you went through, there's so much to learn there as a business owner and entrepreneur. If you're listening to that, like the things that you talked about, just like fireworks were going off in my head. Like you spoke about being behind the counter, which is kind of the experience that I spoke about, where I've got to tell like Billy Bob or Ted that I want to look at another gun. He's got to walk his ass back down there. He's already huffing and puffing, and he's got to get a different one out. Then you spoke about language, or at least what I inferred and read between the lines, the language that they speak, which if you go into a gun shop, a lot of times they talk in technical jargon. And if you're not super familiar with guns or ammunition or things like that, it can get out of your league very quickly for a newcomer. So that, and then eliminating the space between the desk or the counter, if you will, changes the body language. So it changes the relationship, because if you're sitting next to me and talking to me, it's the same reason you don't talk to your employees or staff across the desk, or have a barrier in between them when you're trying to do sales, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're selling cars or selling RVs or whatever, you don't want to sit behind a desk with your customers on the other side of a barrier at all. So I don't know if you meant to do that, but it definitely changes the relationship of the conversation. And so I just, as you were talking, I was highlighting multiple things on my notepad that were like brilliant business ideas for anyone that's listening. And you can do it in any industry, obviously.
Absolutely.
And then it goes back to originally, like what we were talking about, the merging of tech and then like customer service as well. It's not so much that, but that's kind of what it made me think of, because me being I'm 42 years old. So I'm kind of in between the total technological age and like having analog, no computers. They like showed up when I was like 20 or out of college or something like that. But so I still like to do everything online, and I like the convenience of online, but I do like to go certain things I like to go touch and hold before I buy them. And so you're giving them that unique experience as far as like being able to go on their own terms, if you will. I also don't like salesmen breathing down my throat. I'm kind of a standoffish person. Like if I go to a car dealership and the dude just is yakking in my ear and I want to talk to my wife about like making a decision on something and he's just following us around and won't give us any space, that stuff pisses me off. So like to have the ability to go to your store and kind of move around on my own terms while your staff's over there like, we're just here to help. Anytime you need me, ask a question. I think that's like the ideal environment that I like to shop in, I guess. Maybe I'm projecting, but like I love what you've created because it's very intriguing to me as a consumer.
Really, it was for us. The way we set it up was really selfish. We tried to take the things that how we wanted the experience to go, and we didn't know at the time if it's going to be right or if it's going to be embraced. But the other thing that we've kind of honed over the course of time was just that we think has made as big of a difference is basically how you speak to the customer. So, everybody always gets welcomed, of course. But then from there, it's a simple question of, hey, what brings you in today? If you say, you know what, hey, I'm just looking, then say, okay, well, hey, this is over here, that's over there. We're around. Let us know if you need us. But you can tell usually right away if you ask someone that, and sometimes they won't want to spit it out right away, but you can tell if they're not comfortable. If you just talk to them and say, well, hey, what brings you into this? I'm looking for a gun. Say, well, have you how many guns do you have? Do you have any guns before? And they'll say, no, this is my first one. And you say, well, I can certainly let you look around, or if you want, I can walk you through the process. And then what we usually do is the first question is going to be okay, well, the first thing you need to decide is, okay, what's this gun going to be for? Because just like you have a toolbox and you have all kinds of different tools in your toolbox, there's all kinds of different guns and they're used for all kinds of different purposes. Say, well, this is going to be my first gun. I said, well, okay, well, then this is what I would recommend to you. I would recommend to go around and try to pick up some guns. And for the most part, you're going to want to go with the largest gun that you can comfortably hold out and aim. And here's why: it's going to have the least amount of recoil. People always think that the smaller guns have less bang, less recoil, but most of the time it's the exact opposite. So let's try to steer people towards them. And then if they say, okay, well, yeah, that sounds good, say, okay, well, come over here. See, these about 12 guns right here. These are things that I would recommend to you. So you take a little bit of time, you pick up each one, and then when you get done, pick one or two or three that you're comfortable with, and then just give me a shout over, and I'll tell you the differences, and then you can kind of make an educated decision, between those. So that's kind of how we always try to run first time buyers through, and we found it's just made a huge difference because people will say, you know what, I felt so intimidated. I felt like my buddy said I should buy this, or my buddy said I should buy that, and I always say to people, well, my buddy said I need to buy it. My buddy said I need to buy this particular gun. I said, your buddy's wrong. What did you just say? But my buddy knows everything about every guns, and he's a walking encyclopedia. And I said, well, is the gun for your buddy? Well, no, it's for me. Well, I said, well, then it should be your decision with what fits you. Do you let him pick out your pants for you? Well, no. Well, why would you let him pick out your gun?
I love it, man. I love it. That's a great process. Yeah. I mean, and to clarify, when I say I like the online experience, I'm a big researcher. Like, I like to research my own stuff, and then I like to find local people to buy things from, because I do enjoy shopping at small businesses, and I go buy it from a local person because I like having relationships. And so for me, I look up what guns I want, research, and then I would go to your store so I could touch the stuff. And then I would buy from you, because then I have that local relationship with you. And it sounds like you guys do a great job of maintenance and follow up if there's any issues with the weapons either. So that I love everything about what you've just put together, though. What was the biggest? So it sounds like you've operated that way since the beginning of the store in Illinois. What was the biggest adaptation you've made over the last 4 years in your mind that was either positive or negative within the business?
I think probably the biggest change we've made is in the beginning. This was pre-COVID. It was, you always had people calling you as far as different reps and different brands and saying, oh, you should try this, you should try that, you should try that. So it was we're very much on the receiving end. And then we realized that by operating that way and waiting for people to call us and waiting for us to engage, that we were really putting ourselves at the mercy of them. And then COVID hit and shortages of everything. And we had to adapt. We had to figure out, okay, well, how do we get guns on the shelf that we can sell to our customers? And how do we get ammunition on the shelf? And how do we do the sorts of things? And then we really realized is that it's much more of a relationship game than it appeared to us at first. We definitely didn't pigeonhole ourselves into a single vendor. Like in the gun world, there's some things you can buy direct from manufacturers, but there's a lot of things that get sold through about maybe 6 or 8 different large distributors. So we realized that we had to be more proactive in our buying and how we did it, and we had to really plan ahead of what we were going to have involved in sales, what we think we might have in stock that we didn't, when we thought we might get particular items, so that we could really do a lot of forecasting and planning ahead instead of just, okay, the shelf is empty. I need some to order some. That worked in the beginning when everybody was overstocked and everything, but when there was any kind of demand, it didn't. And we found that we were missing sales because we had empty shelves for this and that. So since then, we've actually put in as part of our POS that a way that it'll actually tell us what we need to order before the shelves are empty. So it does forecasting, and it'll tell us we set our mins maxes on different stuff. So if we normally want to carry 6 of something, when we get down to 2, it'll tell us so that we can procure those. Or if it's longer term items, like to say it's a gun that isn't available very often, we may keep 8 of them on hand, and when it gets down to 4, we want to try to start find some. So those sorts of things, really just how we buy to keep our shelves full and then keep our product mix fresh, was probably the biggest change we had to make.
Awesome, man. Well, Steve, guys, he has dropped so much business knowledge on you. Regardless of what industry you're in, there's been gold in this episode with regards to how you can service your clients on a different level and also increase the volume of what you're selling through some of the tips and tricks he's offered here. That's brilliant. Hey, Steve, where can folks find you if they want to touch base with you? Obviously, they need to read your book, Adapt and Overcome by Steve Schabacker. And then obviously that lays out how he built his soon-to-be 8-figure business. And then what other places can they find you? They've got your podcast, Tactical Entrepreneur, and then I'll let you take over and stop interrupting you. Go.
Absolutely. They can certainly find me on Facebook under Steve Schabacker. They can find me on Instagram under Steve_Schabacker_official. Or if they want one easy place to go that it has all my stuff there, they can just go to steveschabacker.com, and I've got all my links on there for all my socials, and then a whole bunch of other information about stuff that I do or stuff that I've done, projects I'm involved in, all those sorts of fun things.
Cool. And we'll link all those places in the show notes, guys. So if you want to find him, just hop in the show notes and you can grab a follow there. Thank you for coming, Steve. And I really appreciate your time, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff. Always a great conversation. Enjoy them very much.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it again. We'll do it again soon. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.